Yeah, in this piece today, you write about our preparedness, essentially, 4 years on. You talk about more fractured politics, you talk about social media, and not so much what people do about moralising this time, all these years on, 110 years since Gallipoli, that this generation might not turn up. That valour, you argue, is still there, and I would agree with that. But the problem, you write today, is that our young people would turn up to fight for their country. They might just not have the best tools available to have a fair fight.
That's my second message for today. So my first message is, regrettably, war is not just in our past, it could unfortunately possibly be in our future. And secondly, because we do live very prosperous lives, we live materially much better lives, and a lot of that was made possible by those earlier sacrifices. I don't want to engage in a moral panic to suggest that young people today wouldn't do the same thing. In fact, I think the opposite. What I call the Zoomer generation, or Gen Z, I think if there was an imminent threat to Australia, if there was a threat of military attack, invasion certainly, but more likely other forms of attack, I think Aussies would turn up and they'd show as much valour, and they wouldn't just be called, if I can put it in these terms, Jones and Edwards. They'd be called, I'd like to think, Pezzullo, Singh, Muhammad, etc. Aussies would turn up to defend their country. The problem is, if you turn up unprepared, if you haven't had that military training, if you don't have the right equipment, if the defence capability hasn't been built up in the lead up to the potential for conflict, then you're going to take more losses on the day of battle than you otherwise would need to, and you won't potentially be successful on that first day. Democracies tend to be slow to the fight. Tyrannies tend to be more mobilised. Democracies tend to be slower to the fight. You saw that in World War I and World War II. Then they mobilise their population and they basically outproduce the aggressor. We might not have that luxury next time, if, God forbid, it does come to it.
And just very briefly, if you will, Mike, we saw the opposition announce that they would put $21 billion more into the defence budget. It is slow. It's over a 4-year period. Do you think it's enough from either side of the major parties at the moment?
Look, the headline, we don't have time to talk about this today, but the headline for me is, even-handedly, I'd congratulate the government on its National Defence Strategy of 2024, but it's underfunded. So if you could magically combine the coalition funding envelope with the direction of travel of our capability, particularly for funding capabilities beyond the submarines, I think you'd have almost, not quite, you'd have almost the optimal defence strategy for Australia if you could combine the money and the strategy from the two sides of politics.
We'll talk next week, Mike. Thanks so much for your time this Anzac Day.
Lest we forget.
Indeed.